Hello everyone, it's DiegoDoom here bringing you another video. Today we're going to be answering a whole bunch of questions. So welcome to the 25K Q&A response video. For those of you who do not know, a little over a week ago, I found out I broke the 25,000 subscriber mark, which is absolutely fantastic and definitely very cool. To commemorate this huge milestone, I decided it'd be pretty cool to do a 25K Q&A. So in the 25K announcement video, I asked you guys to leave your question on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, and I'd answer them in this video. You guys left a lot of awesome and interesting questions, so I've compiled the best of those questions from each location, and now we're gonna answer them here. Now to start, first, let's go ahead and answer the common questions. I noticed you guys kind of asked the same question in different locations kind of over and over again a little bit, so I'm gonna go ahead and answer those first few common questions and then we'll jump into the rest of the questions. So for the first common question, you guys asked, what got me into collecting? So first, let me take you guys back a bit. Growing up, I had an extreme appreciation for high-end collectible action figures. At the time, I loved them, but I didn't want them because I knew I wouldn't take good care of them. Considering my age at the time, that was a pretty mature decision. So fast forward to 2009, I'm grown, I'm on my own in my own apartment having a blast, and I'm sitting there watching the brand new Shin Mazinger Z anime series. So as I'm watching Shin Mazinger Z, just this sudden idea popped in my mind. I was like, you know what? I think I want a figure of that. I instantly hopped on Amazon and I picked up my very first figure, which was the Soul of Shoryuken GX49 Shin Mazinger Z plus Big Bang Punch. From then on, I've been on the whirlwind of collecting. The second common question I was asked, what is my favorite Godzilla film? I would have to say my favorite Godzilla film is Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 1974. Growing up, that was my absolute favorite Godzilla film that we owned, and I'd watch it over and over again. You had so much cool stuff going on in that movie. You had Godzilla, you had Anguirus, you had Mechagodzilla, you had these crazy space monkeys, you had King Caesar, just so much stuff was going on all at once, and in the end, it was just awesome kaiju and robotic action. So for our final common question, you guys asked, what is your favorite s.h.monsterarts figure? I can't really name just one, so let me give you my top three. So first up we have our Godzilla 1995 Rebirth figure, then our Gemr 96 from Gemr 2, and then finally I'll say probably Kiryu, heavily armed, high mobility type. Those three figures are my absolute favorite s.h.monsterarts figures. I know you guys are surprised, like why didn't you say Space Godzilla, but with those three figures, I had a lot of fun photographing those things, posing them, and making the reviews for those, so those are my favorites that come to mind. So now let's jump into our questions and we'll start with the questions that came from YouTube. Our first question comes from Spider Venom. How many figures do you have? How much money have you spent on your collection? And who is your favorite Godzilla kaiju? Now, as far as figures that I own, I have not necessarily taken full inventory of my entire collection, but I would say I have over 300 figures in my collection. Now, as far as how much money I've spent on my collection, it's a whole bunch. Now, as far as my favorite Godzilla kaiju, just like my Monster Arts figures, I can't pick one. So let me give you my, we'll say top four. So, Mechagodzilla 74, King Caesar, Space Godzilla, and Destroya. Our next question comes from FNCSP. This user asked, do you plan on getting the X Plus King Kong? As of right now, I do not have any plans to pick up the X Plus King Kong figure. Now, I'm sure most of you guys know, but for those of you who do not know, I'm not really a fan of King Kong. I don't hate him, but he doesn't really resonate with me. I'm not a fan of gigantic realistic creatures, so for instance, you know, giant ape, not all that cool. Giant spider, kind of bland. Giant mantis, really not that cool. Giant lobster, not really that cool. But gigantic radioactive dragon looking lizard creature, awesome. Three-headed dragon from space, awesome. A creature comprised of millions of microscopic tiny crabs that form as one massive creature, absolutely fantastic. Now, I will consider picking up the X Plus King Kong figure if I have enough requests to review it. So if you guys really want me to do that, let me know in the comments below and maybe I'll go ahead and pick it up. Our next question comes from Tindoyu, so I'm pretty sure I'm mispronouncing that name, so forgive me. But this user asked, how hype are you gonna watch Godzilla Monster Planet? I guess he asked, how hype am I for the film on a scale from 1 to 10? I would have to say a 7. The story sounds definitely very cool, but for me personally, I'm kind of a old school anime fan. I am not a fan of blending CG in with animation, but if you check out Tiger and Bunny, I think they blended in the CG perfectly with the rest of the anime. So hopefully it turns out good, but as a whole, 7 out of 10, and we'll see what happens. Our next question comes from Scott's World. Scott's World asked, where did your interest in Godzilla and Ultraman begin with? Was it the movies and series, or was it the figures themselves? Second, is there a character you'd love to see in figure form, and if so, who? So I think my very first Godzilla film had to be Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster, which is Godzilla vs. Ibra. Then after that, it was Godzilla vs. King Kong. Then it was the absolutely fantastic Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, then Godzilla 1954, and then from that point on, we were hooked. Unfortunately, we had Godzilla's Revenge, which is a crazy film now. When at the time when I watched it, I loved it, but now as an adult, it's like, wow, this is a awful compilation film. Now, how did I get into Ultraman? It's pretty interesting. So my very first Ultraman series or Ultra series was actually Ultra 7. Back in the day on TNT, they used to show episodes of Ultra 7, which was crazy. I remember we would watch it, I think at like 5 o'clock in the morning. Didn't even know what was going on, but it was definitely very cool. So then after Ultra 7, then my brother and I ordered some VHS tapes of Ultraman Towards the Future, which is I think Ultraman Great. I think we had episode 1, 2, 3, and then like 12, which was like the final episode, but that's where Ultraman came from, starting with Ultra 7, and then Ultraman Great, and then from then on, I was on an Ultra mission. For the next question, is there a character I'd like to see a figure of? As of right now, right at the top of my head, I'm kind of looking over here, I would love to see a fully posable figure of Zeram, or Zeram from Zeram 1 and Zeram 2. I am a huge fan of those movies and the anime. I just think Zeram is an awesome alien Terminator character. So I feel like that's definitely a character that's kind of like underrepresented or kind of underestimated, kind of like the Guyver. So yeah, I'd like to see a Zeram figure. Our next question comes from Anime Head. Anime Head asked, what was the first anime you ever saw? Also, what was the first anime toy you owned? Anime Head mentioned his first anime was Hokuto no Ken, which is Fist of the North Star, the movie. For those of you who do not know, then his first figure was a Kyoto Evangelion Unit 1. Now, technically, the first anime that I ever saw was Speed Racer, the movie. Now, at the time, I didn't know what anime was, and in all honesty, that Speed Racer movie is like pretty bland, but I did enjoy it for the time being. Now, one thing was kind of cool, I did have the VHS of the movie where at the very end, there was this like Speed Racer techno remix music video, which is pretty cool. Now, when you fast forward and I started to realize what anime was, my very first anime that I watched was Iria Zerum, the animation. So back in the day, the Sci-Fi Channel used to show anime like early in the morning on Saturdays. I didn't know what anime was, but I knew this stuff looked completely different from what I've seen in the past, and I knew it was absolutely awesome. That's how I got into anime. Now, the first anime figure I ever owned, it would have to be the Soul Taker figure from the anime of the same name, Soul Taker. Looking back now, that anime was kind of meh, but the figure and the character design was definitely very cool. Our next question comes from Shoryuken 667. What was your very first action figure, and also who or what gave you the inspiration to start a YouTube channel? Now, as far as I can remember, my very first action figure that I owned all to myself, didn't have to share it with anybody at all. It was a very cool Omega Red figure from X-Men. I thoroughly enjoyed that figure, but I did have a reoccurring issue. That figure's left leg easily broke off. I asked my parents to rebuy that figure for me like 3 times, and then after the 3rd time I broke it, I was like, you know what? I'm done with this figure. After I'd been collecting for about a year, I had this weird habit of buying a figure and then going on YouTube and watching a review, so you can tell that's pretty backwards. So I watched toy reviewers such as Josh B from Collection DX, Chachi Power from Rocket Punch Army, Optimus Prime SG, Shardimus Prime, and a few other toy reviewers. Now, one thing I noticed in particular, there were not a lot of toy reviewers who were reviewing figures from the tokusatsu genre. Now, there were a few reviewers who did like Kamen Rider figures and so on and so forth, but I never really saw anyone who reviewed what I actually owned. So then one day, just like a snap decision like I made when I jumped into collecting, I was like, you know what? I know how to make videos, and I do collect these figures, so why don't I just start making my own figure reviews? So then I just kind of jumped into it, and I started with my very first figure review, and that was of s.h.monsterarts Sky High. You can see that very old and somewhat cringy review by clicking the card on screen right now. Our next question comes from NightShadow, the NSX. NightShadow asked, do you have a favorite video game series? Now, in my spare time, I do play quite a few video games, but as far as my favorite video game series, it would have to be the Metal Gear series. I love pretty much all the games with the exception of Metal Gear Acid, but I don't know if you really kind of throw that in the mix or not, but I started out with, I think, Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, then I played Twin Snakes, then I played Metal Gear Solid 3, then there was like 3 Subsistence, then I played, Metal Gear Solid, the original on PlayStation, then came, Metal Gear Solid 4, then we had Peace Walker, and then Metal Gear Solid 5. Our next question comes from my good friend, Daryl Banks, absolutely fantastic comic artist. Make sure to follow him on Twitter. Daryl asked, is there a character you like to see in action figure form that currently doesn't have one? Now, I know I just answered this question, but after seeing it again, another idea jumped in my head that I should have mentioned before. We absolutely need a Jet Jaguar figure. We can go ahead and do like a s.h.monsterarts cross Ultra Act or cross s.h. Figuarts figure, but we definitely need a Jet Jaguar figure. Our next question comes from some random Clone Trooper. Clone Trooper asked, what is your favorite and least favorite Monster Art figure/figures? Now, we already answered what was my favorite figure, so now the question is, what are my least favorite Monster Arts figures? My least favorite Monster Arts figures would probably have to be these Alien, let me put this over here, and Predator releases. You know, at the time, these were absolutely fantastic, but after they've been on my shelf for a while and I really thought about it, I don't really like these figures. With Alien, you remember the jaw wouldn't stay and it was loose to goose, and then the tail was always floppy, and it's kind of like, it kind of put things in perspective. I'm a very casual Alien fan, so not a fan of this one. And then with the Predator figure, I do like it, but the articulation was a huge letdown. And then also, you know, Aliens vs. Predator really wasn't that good of a movie, so I don't really have a connection with the Scar Predator. So hopefully, if they ever dabble this again, they're gonna fix the hips. We have true figure art style hips, and then maybe they'll do a Jungle Predator or maybe a City Hunter Predator. So yeah, I'd have to say I'm not a fan of the Alien vs. Predator figures. Our next question comes from Solidus Godzilla. Solidus Godzilla asked, what is your current review setup? What kind of table, lights, background do you use? How do you get your images or videos to move so smoothly during the showcase of the figure before every review? Now, I know I've been saying this for a while. I am going to make a vlog detailing my entire setup. I just have to kind of plan it out and figure out the best way to properly show everything to you guys. As far as getting smooth movements in the beginning intros of my videos, one key to my success or tool is a very cool camera slider. I hope you guys can see this on camera, but yeah, got this camera slider here, plop the camera on top, move back and forth like this, and get a lot of cool shots and interesting techniques just using this one very basic tool. Our next question comes from Pablo Fiera, I believe that's how you pronounce the last name. Pablo mentions he is from Brazil, lets us know how ridiculous the prices are. Said sometimes price could be 3.5 times more than what we pay due to exchange rate and taxes. So Pablo's ultimate question is, what is the major reason why I like Godzilla? In all honesty, it's kind of hard for me to explain. It's just, you know, Godzilla is this just massive, cool looking, unstoppable force that basically destroys everything. He can't be stopped. He's very cool, always comes back. Awesome hero, awesome, anti-hero? I just don't know. I love Godzilla so much and it just really resonates with me. Our next question comes from Horzo. Horzo asked, what is your favorite video game of all time? I would have to say my favorite video game of all time would be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time for the SNES. That game is absolutely fantastic. I can play that game at any time. I might pop it in and just play it beginning to end, or maybe I'll just hop in, do a couple of stages. I normally stop once you get to the point where you're throwing the foot soldiers at Shredder, but that game is just so fun and just like a timeless classic. Now, for those of you who don't know, they made, I think, a very crappy HD remake of it on the PS3 and Xbox 360 a few years ago. Don't buy that. Go back and get the original if you can find it. Our next question comes from GogiSonicFan X. GogiSonicFan asked, what is your favorite Ultra Act? Now, just like with our s.h.monsterarts figures, I really can't pick just one, so let me give you my top three. So we'll say Ultra 7 Renewal version, Ultraman Jonias, both releases, and then finally we'll say Ace Robot and the Planet Golgotha set, an absolutely fantastic set to replicate a truly infamous moment in the Ultra franchise. Our next question comes from Sebastian Luna. Sebastian asked, what do you think of the direction MonsterArts is taking? Do you think they started to drop the ball? And finally, what monster do you want the most in the line? Now, as far as the direction the MonsterArts line is taking, I don't really see a clear one. Now, when it comes to dropping the ball, so on and so forth, we've seen quite a few QC issues pop up here and there. For instance, you have Mothra's wing hinge that was breaking. We have my infamous Shin Godzilla, which is absolutely terrible. But as a whole, I really don't want to see any more repaints unless it's something new or truly unique. For instance, we had our Ava 1 Godzilla figure, which is definitely very cool, but I want to see brand new stuff. We have Mechagodzilla 1974 coming out in January, but aside from that, I want my King Caesar, I want my Megalon, I want my Gigan 72, I want my Anguirus, I want more Gemr figures. I want everything we could possibly have Kaiju related and go from there. For the second part of the question, what monster would like to see most in the MonsterArts line? I think it would have to be probably Megalon and King Caesar. And hey, I would like to see that prototype of the main hero from Yamato Takeru pop up because, they made a prototype of that a very long time ago and then it kind of disappeared, just like with the Evangelion Angel. So hopefully those will resurface at some point. Our next batch of questions comes from Tariq AlGhul. Please forgive me if I'm butchering your name, but Tariq asked, do you think Bandai is getting lazy with the s.h.monsterarts line? Are Super Robot Shoryuken figures getting very expensive? Did I miss out on Voltron or choose to skip it? And also, can I show how I edit my videos and my setups? So first up, we already answered the s.h.monsterarts line question, so we'll go past that. Now for your second question, are Super Robot Shoryuken figures getting expensive? Absolutely, they're getting kind of crazy. Mazin Emperor G costs me more than our Dynamic Classic Mazinger C, so I don't know what's going on because as a whole, the SRC figures don't really have that much more die cast than our SOC figures, so it really doesn't make any sense how expensive they're becoming. Now, when it comes to Voltron, I did choose to skip that release. At first, I really wanted it, but then after seeing the figure quite a bit, I didn't like how it looked like the older toy versions. I was hoping we'd have somewhat more of a anime accurate version, so I'm hoping we'll have an SRC Voltron figure that looks more like the anime versus, our classic, Popey style figures. And then for your final question about the editing setups and that kind of good stuff, I do plan to do a vlog. I keep saying I'm going to do all these vlogs, but I am going to do a vlog showing how I edit my videos and all the software and setups that I do use. Just kind of be patient with that. Gotta figure out a proper way how to do it so it's interesting and doesn't get boring. This next question comes from Jaster21. Jaster asked, is fantastic your favorite word? Not really. Fantastic isn't necessarily my favorite word. How fantastic came about, in my earlier reviews, I used to get super duper nervous and just feel the need to always fill in any dead spaces when I was talking. Now, a word that popped up as a nervous tick and something that was all-encompassing, I would just use the word fantastic. So initially start off as something I'd say when I was nervous, and then it kind of turned into the new catchphrase. So now I am Mr. Fantastic, I guess. Our next question comes from kikenchantaka. Forgive me if I'm butchering the name. This user asked, what is your favorite toy company? Do you have a figure you like more than the others? And do you see other channels for toy reviews? So my favorite toy company would have to be Bandai Tamashii Nations. They make basically all these absolutely fantastic figures we own. In second place would be, X Plus, and then of course Max Factory, who gives us our Figma figures. As far as my absolutely favorite figure, I would have to say it's the X Plus Gigantic Series Godzilla 1995 Burning Godzilla figure. Masterpiece, truly stunning, love it to death, and it's definitely the staple of my collection. And then for the final question, do I watch other toy reviewers? I absolutely do. I watch Meads, Kokujin Reviews, Jobby the Hong, Shardimus Prime, Collection DX, Rocket Punch Army. I watch basically everyone's reviews, big or small, because sometimes you guys convince me into picking up something I kind of thought I was going to skip out on, or, convinced me to maybe jump into another figure line. Right now I'm kind of teetering on maybe picking up some Gundam figures, and then also I'm kind of considering jumping in to maybe pick up maybe one or two Masterpiece Transformer figures. I'm not really sure. Kind of a extremely casual Transformers fan, so I need to pick up something that's a very cool piece to own. Our next question comes from cardboardbox. Cardboardbox asked, if a new color was being added to a traffic light, what color would it be and what would it signify? Now this is a very interesting question. It's funny you asked this because I actually witnessed a car accident just a week ago. So basically what happened with that accident, two cars ran a red light, the second car clipped the first car, spun out of control, hit the pole holding up the traffic light, everything came down, there was glass of smoke everywhere, then the guy hopped out of the car unscathed and attempted to kind of mosey away. So for me personally, when I'm driving, when the light turns green, I don't floor it. Normally I'll sit there for like 3 to 5 seconds. People always honk at me, but the thing is, you never know who's going to run a red light at the last second. If I had a light to add to the traffic light, it would be a blue light before the green light. The blue light would signify like some kind of like standby mode or something like that. And that way, it would be blue, and the red light would be red for a certain amount of time on the other side, so that way if there's any freaks who want to just run that light, they can go ahead and do it without any worries, and then it would turn green, and then we can turn in whatever direction we want in peace, and don't have to worry about getting clipped or smashed or anything like that. This next question comes from Ultraman52. Ultraman52 asked, my question is, since you got back into playing Street Fighter V, do you think you'll be playing other fighting games like the upcoming Dragon Ball FighterZ? Now, something you guys may not be aware of, but I think most of you do know, I do play quite a few video games, and I definitely enjoy Street Fighter and other fighting games. I absolutely will pick up Dragon Ball Z Fighter. Now, since we're on the subject of video games, I'm kind of getting heavy into Street Fighter once again. I'm actually taking it fairly seriously. Check this out. So as you guys can see, I am scrubbing my way to the top. Now, one question I want to ask you guys, how would you feel about me throwing up a couple of gameplay videos on the channel here and there? Nothing that would overtake reviews or something like that, but just kind of my adventures in video gaming. Because we could do maybe a series of DiegoDoom versus the world, or maybe even DiegoDoom versus fans. So either I can body you guys, or maybe I wind up getting bodied by you guys. But in the comments below, let me know what you think of the prospect of that. Our next question comes from Hyperboy. Hyperboy asked, how can you get a good estimate on the value of a figure? Also, how can you draw the line between collecting and just enjoying what you own? Now, when it comes to determining the value of a figure, I really don't know. Like the best way I go to judge things, if a figure is out of stock everywhere and now it's out of print, you know the price is going to rise, hence making it more valuable. Like for s.h.monsterarts figures, as soon as they're sold out and they're out of print, you know, their price slowly starts to rise. You know, it kind of like times a half, next thing you know it doubles, and sometimes it triples. But with figures like with X Plus, those figures, as soon as they sell out, their price tends to seem to like double, and then they kind of like quadruple within a year, which is kind of insane. Now, where do I draw the line between collecting and enjoying what I have? I don't really put that kind of line in the sand. You know, occasionally I'll just grab something off the shelf, grab the box, break up the accessories, kind of post things around and put it back. Now, as you can see here in the background, I basically vanilla pose everything because I do so many crossover shots that I don't want to sit there and take the time to set up some kind of cool diorama, then pull out its pose, mess with it, and then put it back. It'd be too much of a headache. So I play with my figures. This next question comes from Please Pin Me. Please Pin Me asked, how long does one of your stop motion animations for review usually take? So normally when I try to do a stop motion animation, it typically takes between like 3 and 4 hours, even to do the most basic stuff. Now it takes so long, you have to move things like micro inch or like micrometer by micrometer just to get a nice smooth animation. So trying to do everything as perfect as I possibly can given my skill level, it really takes a long time. I'm sure, you know, the more I practice it, the more efficient I'll get at it, but for right now, it takes like 3 to 4 hours to do something. Prime example, when I did the full-blown articulation animation for the Figma Gyra 3 figure, click the card on screen to see that right in here. That took me probably, I want to say it was like 6 hours. It was like really tough. I had to redo a lot of stuff over and over again. So yeah, it takes a long time. Our next question comes from Figure 108. Figure 108 asked, what is your favorite tokusatsu hero or series and why? So again, guys, I really can't pick just one, but we'll just say my top 2 would have to be Ultra 7, and I really like Kamen Rider Black. So with Ultra 7, you know, that's where my love of Ultraman first started. Very crazy, a lot of violence, and just as a whole, very cool. Now for Kamen Rider Black, I just thought that series was just so amazing. You know, it was dark, gritty, a lot of drama, interesting character arcs, you know, with like Shadow Moon and all that kind of crazy stuff. So, you know, Battle Hopper was alive. Just something about that was just very cool and definitely action-packed. Our next question comes from Matthias Kubis. Please forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name. This user asked, as a fellow collector, how do you manage the space for your collection? To manage space, what I typically try to do, I try to buy like the most wide and deep shelving systems that I can find. You know, IKEA has a lot of great stuff. Back here, this is the IKEA catalogs fixture, so it's very wide, very deep. Also, I tend to vanilla pose my figures so I can get the maximum amount of figures on a shelf without breaking it and stuff. So basically it's buy nice, wide and deep shelving, and also I say vanilla pose your figures, but I know that can get a little boring and stuff like that. So that's how I go about that. Our next question comes from fellow s.h.monsterarts reviewer, Super MarioZilla. Make sure to check out his channel. Super MarioZilla asked, how did you discover the s.h.monsterarts line? So the MonsterArts line started pretty early into my collecting career. One day I was on hobbylinkjapan.com browsing around for what new figures to buy, and I saw this very awesome looking Godzilla figure pop up. It was the first edition of s.h.monsterarts Godzilla in 1994. Saw it, thought it looked awesome, picked it up, and I've been on the line ever since. Our next question comes from both XJH and also Ultra 780. So they basically ask, how are you able to afford so many figures? Now this is a question I have been asked many times throughout the year. So basically how I afford everything is a simple process I came up with, and it's called PBS, which stands for pre-order, budget, and save. I will go into absolute and thorough detail on this in a future vlog, and hopefully that will help you guys be able to afford all the figures you want. You do not have to be super rich to buy everything. You just have to be smart, pre-order, and save your money, and voila, you can have all this absolutely fantastic stuff too. So now let's take a look at our questions from Instagram. Now I did post this up kind of late, so we don't have that many questions here, so we'll kind of go through these pretty quickly. So first up, we have our first question from Steam 12521. He asked, what are your other favorite hobbies other than collecting? It would be video games. I watch a ton of movies. I'm at the movie theater like almost every weekend. And then outside of that, I need to get back into weightlifting because I've kind of slacked off from that quite a bit. We'll save that for after Thanksgiving, I guess. Our next question comes from Godzilla Alien Fan 1954. He asked, who do you like better, Alien or Predator, and why? I would have to say I like the Predator better. Aliens, they're pretty cool, but they're kind of mindless monsters. The Predators are big, massive beasts with all this cool technology and a very unique cultural system. So I'd have to say Predators are the best. Our next question comes from Visible Guts. Are there any figures you regret purchasing or regret not purchasing? Now, as far as figures I regret not purchasing, there's not really any I can name off the top of my head, but there are 3 figures I regret purchasing in the first place. So first up, we have our Revoltech Getter 1. So I bought this figure on a snap decision, just like when I jumped into collecting. Had this figure for a few days, and then I picked up the SOC Getter 1. I realized, you know, I'm not really a fan of these Revoltech joints or Revoltech figures as a whole. And it's just like, you know, tiny head, weird body, it's kind of difficult to kind of pose them all that well. So it's like, I just kind of fell out of this figure within days of picking it up because something better came along the way. The second figure I regret purchasing is this cool but not so fantastic D-Arts Izanagi figure. The figure is cool, but you know, first off, I had issues with it. He cannot stand on his own, but that's due to his design. But also, he had a dingle head right out of the box and also had a lot of issues with the elbow joints. But something that really kind of put the nail in the coffin on this figure, I realized I didn't really like Persona 4. I loved Persona 3 and Persona 3 Fest with the extra story, but just Persona 4 as a whole, I didn't even finish that game. It didn't really resonate with me. Yeah, you're going to the TV and trying to prevent murders and all that kind of good stuff, but it just wasn't anything to me. So I kind of like, man, this figure has issues. Then I realized I don't even like this franchise, so I regret picking this up. So for my third regret buy, it happens to be this Play Arts Kai Solid Snake Battle Dress version from Peace Walker. This was another snap decision, so I was playing Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker heavily on my PSP, enjoying that game. I was into collecting. I was like, man, let me just go ahead and buy this figure right here. Snap decision. Didn't do any research on the figure at all. Got it in hand. Pretty cool figure at first, but once I started really looking at Snake's face, like, wow, you know, this doesn't really look like Solid Snake. It's a representation of Solid Snake, but it's not truly Solid Snake. So it's kind of like, you know, with humanoid faces, you know, if the nose is off a tiny bit, of the eyes are kind of weird just in the slightest, it throws the entire face off. So I was like, you know, I really don't have much love for this figure at all. But, you know, knowing what I know now, if I want absolute detail on a humanoid face and it's like Spawn representation, I need to invest in a Hot Toys figure or something like that. And then again, that's another point. I tend to stay away from humanoid faced figures because the thing is, if you do not execute the face perfectly, then the whole figure can be easily ruined. Now for our Twitter questions. First up, we have Matt Jacobson. He asked, what do I think of an s.h.monsterarts Kumonga figure? I can't really say that I would pick that one up. Again, it's just a giant spider. I don't really think it's all that interesting. Next up, we have a question from Clint K. Please excuse me, Clint, for messing up your name. But Clint asked, besides Ultraman Godzilla, do you keep up with things like Super Sentai? What 3 Ultraman Kaiju or Seijin would you like to see in the S.H. Figure Arts line? And what 3 Ultraman Kaiju or Seijin would you like to see in the S.H. Figure Arts line? So the other stuff I'm into, I do watch some of the Super Sentai shows. I can't really say I'm heavy in the Kamen Rider as much anymore. I have to admit, I'm really not a fan of all these transformations, all these modes, because it's becoming blatantly obvious They're trying to sell merch. Now, as far as 3 Ultraman Kaiju I want to see in the S.H. Figure Arts line, I want to see Alien Wu. I would like to see Zamu Seijing, but that's from Ultraman Neos, I think. And then finally, I think I really would like to see maybe, I guess Red King, but you know, that's inevitable. Our next question from Twitter comes from Switchboard. Switchboard asked, what is the first s.h.monsterarts figure you have ever picked up? And also, what do you use to edit? Is it free? So my very first s.h.monsterarts figure was Godzilla 1994. And then for the software that I use Adobe After Effects and Adobe Premiere Pro. And no, it is not free, but it's like $50 a month, or you can probably pay for the year subscription. Now we have our Facebook questions. Our first set of questions comes from my main man Harold over at the Figure Mania Show. Make sure to follow him on Twitter and subscribe to his channel. But Harold asked, favorite figure you ever received, the best thing to happen as a result of starting your channel, best advice for all aspiring YouTubers. So first up, my favorite figure that I've ever received, it'd have to be the X Plus Gigantic Series Godzilla 1995 Burning Godzilla figure. Truly a stunning piece, and again, the staple of my collection. Now, as far as the best thing that has happened as a result of starting my YouTube channel, it would have to be being able to connect with collectors all over the country as well as all over the world. It is very cool to meet and encounter people who are into the same thing that I am, so I'm really grateful for that. Then for the final part, the best advice I can give to all aspiring YouTubers, in all honesty, I would have to say, I know it sounds pretty basic, just do what you love and stay consistent with it, and I think the followers will eventually come. You know, at first, I thought I was pretty terrible at YouTube, then I got kind of decent, and as you can see now, I have 25,000 subscribers. I think just kind of stick to what you're doing and make sure you're doing what you love, and I think everything else will kind of fall into place for you. Well guys, that is it for this Q&A video. Now guys, please don't feel slighted if I did not answer your question. Either it would have been too much to add into one video, or I already answered it with the previous question. So again guys, I sincerely appreciate your participation in asking all these absolutely fantastic questions, and I sincerely appreciate your support as I continue to grow more and more on this channel. This has been a Q&A video by DiegoDoom. Thank you very much for watching, and please stay tuned for more figure reviews. To see more absolutely fantastic content, click the links on screen right now. If you thoroughly enjoyed my videos, consider checking out my Patreon. Remember to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and most important of all, remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe.